Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks so much for tuning in to the 4554 podcast. I'm your host, Nick Eden, and we are back with another show. And we have, 3 weeks in now? Yeah, 3 weeks in. We're on episode 33. Wow. And you guys are still rocking with me. Numbers were incredible on last week. Obviously, people found some real value in finding out about Spreadshirt. I'm really glad that all of I say all, but some of you who are my original podcast listeners are still rocking with me, and the new ones. I'm great to have you here too. Grateful, I should say, very grateful. Which is actually why I wanted to switch my topic for today. And so I said last week that I wanted to continue this series where I talked about other platforms that were based in print on demand that were not merged by Amazon, just to give everybody a chance to be a little bit more diverse. But I will get back to that next week. But a couple of things came up this week, and it made me think. It made me do some self-reflecting, and just some evaluating overall. And you guys know, if you're listening to the show, 9 times out of 10, you are a newer POD seller, or you were a newer POD seller when I first started the podcast, which is what I geared the podcast towards. That being said, this time of year, Q4, is not just a great season for print-on-demand sellers. It's also a great season for those who offer services such as bundles, ebooks, courses, the whole nine. And in the past, there have been some that have come and gone, that have not had the best practices when it comes to these types of things. And it puts everyone under a lens when that happens. I've been under that lens before. My second Q4 on merch, I actually put out a Q4 strategy guide. And, I was grateful because a lot of people said that they found some real value from it. But I do understand where in certain situations people feel like, oh, they might be getting scammed, that it's easy to lump everybody in that. And so that made me compile a list of 5 tips to avoid scammers during Q4. And first, let me just go ahead and say, this is not an expose. This is not I'm going to be saying that this person is bad and that person is bad. No, that's not the case. And the reason that's not the case is because what I am a strong believer in is that if I have not taken that course, I'm not going to criticize that course. And I feel like you shouldn't listen to anyone who has not taken that course and does not have firsthand knowledge of it. So 5 tips to avoid scammers during Q4, and we're going to get right into it. The first tip would be number 5, assess your budget. So for most of the people who are coming into Merch by Amazon, Spreadshirt, Redbubble, Etsy, whatever the case may be, this may be your very first foray into entrepreneurship. And you may have not been selling that well up until this point. I've already started to see the uptick. This is around that usual time. We're 2 weeks into Q4. And so you may not have seen that before, and that's totally fine. But, and there are some people that have come from the reseller world, from the FBA world, just in other entrepreneurial efforts. But for I would say for the majority of those sellers, you're starting this cold. You're either, you may have been let go by your job, furloughed during the pandemic. It's a myriad of reasons of why you may be selling print on demand now. But you need to assess your budget, and you need to assess your budget because you may not have $100 to $300 to take a course or get a bundle or get a design service or whatever the case may be. I would say, if you're at the point where you can do some advertising, if you're going to spend $100, you might not want to spend it on a course that's going to be primarily centered around research. Now, if there are some advertising strategies in there and you've got the extra capital to do it, I think that would probably be worth checking out once you do your research. But I think at this stage in the game, unless you're taking this course to prepare yourself for next year, it may not be the best strategy for it. That's not knocking anybody's courses. I'm actually in a course right now. I'm not going to say who it is or where it's coming from, I'm not even going to tell you what platform it's for. I can tell you it's not for the major ones that everybody thinks. I did my research. I trust the person who is doing this course. I've worked with them in the past, and and that's why I'm using these tips and giving these tips so you guys can use those same things to avoid scammers. So the first thing is to assess your budget. If you can allocate that somewhere else, I would probably suggest do that. Number 4, research the person providing the course or bundle. Now, what does that mean? Google is your friend. Google is your friend. Facebook is your friend. In this circumstance, yeah, it can be your friend. I dare even say Reddit is your friend. And the reason that I say that, because a lot of people do not like Reddit. And I've had my issues with Reddit and some of the rhetoric in Reddit that goes on. But one thing you cannot deny is that there's a ton of great resources in Reddit, but there's also very unfiltered commentary on some of the folks that do offer courses. And that's across the board. That's in private label, that's in reselling, that's in print on demand, that's across the board. So again, not calling out anybody specific. And it's not to say that the information that's in there is 100% absolute. You have to do your research. So that would be it. And I mean, research is the same way you research niches. Do it the same way you research keywords. Really just dive in and think about, okay, if I'm going to spend this money, I need to make sure I know the person that I'm spending this money with, or know enough about them where I can make an educated guess. I would say definitely reach out to people, DM them on Facebook. If you see them in a group and it's a course that you're interested in, and someone says, oh, I took that course last year, or I took that course last week, or whenever it was offered, or I've taken a similar course from them before, reach out to that person individually. Again, that's the person who has firsthand knowledge about what that course is about. And it's usually far enough along where they either had positive, negative, or neutral results. And so that's how far I would take the research, because again, if you're taking this money to invest into this, then that's really something that you should dive into on the research portion of it. Now, while you're doing that, that does bring up number 3. Don't get caught in negativity. Again, and I say that because, and listen, hey, I appreciate everybody who is on all these platforms, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Reddit. If you're giving out information about this that can help people have a legitimate shot at least side to possibly full-time income with print on demand, I applaud you. Unfortunately, you will find that within that, everyone takes it as a chance. Well, not everyone, but some people take it as an opportunity for it to become a bitch session, and put the kids away. Sorry. People take it as an opportunity to turn it into that type of session because they just want to air out their grievances, because they may just not personally like the person that's putting out the course, which is why I say, listen, talk to someone who's actually taking that course. I'm not just going to listen to some anonymous person who just wants to gripe about someone they don't like because they don't like the idea of a guru or this or that. And it's just like, dude, stop sitting in your misery. That's fine. Express the opinion, take the good, discard the bad, and make an informed decision from there. And making that informed decision is actually tip number 2. Make a decision on logic and not desperation. Listen, if you are selling fairly decent, if you're not selling that well in any sense, stay the course. Just because you take someone's, and when I say stay the course, I mean stay your course. Just because you take someone's course does not mean that you're automatically going to sell like them. Just because you take someone's graphic design bundle or their research bundle, it doesn't mean that you're going to automatically be at the top of the list at every niche that you put yourself into. So with that being said, if you are making this decision saying, hey, look, I got $150, whatever, however much. I don't want to say any specific numbers because I don't want anybody coming around and saying, oh, you're talking, let's just call the elephant in the room. Oh, you're talking about RJJ and Dion's course, or you're talking about Amy Nicholas's course. No, I wish people knew how many courses there are. I was actually doing research into doing a website that would rate these types of things so that people would go and they would a Yelp for print on demand, I guess you could say, or a TripAdvisor for print on demand. If you have no idea how many courses there are that are actually out there, and it's not by the people that you interact with every day on Facebook, it's not by the people that you interact with every day on Reddit or Twitter or whatever the case may be. So this is not that type of thing. I've worked with RJ in the past. I've worked with Amy in the past. We've done business together. There are a myriad of things that they're doing right now that I applaud them for. If you guys notice, I have not done any affiliate links or anything like that. And I'm doing that for a reason, because I feel like the last time I did merch heavily and started doing a lot of content heavily, I put a little bit more into the affiliates than I did the actual content. And it's easy to get burned out that way. And I've always said, if I can't bring real value, then I don't need to be around. So it's not a knock on anybody that I'm not calling out courses specifically or endorsing courses specifically, because that's just not where I am this time around. Realistically, I want people to be able to come to this podcast, this YouTube channel, whatever the case may be, and walk away with real value and not feeling like they've been sold anything. So that's why I've made the decision not to carry a lot of affiliates. That's not to say that that won't happen down the line, but if it's something, I guarantee you, it's got to be something that I'm truly into and truly wanting to endorse, because I've used it and I've seen success. Anyway, that being said, make a decision on logic and not desperation. Again, if you've only got $150, don't be so quick to just say, oh man, I've got to get a course because I've got to bump up my sales right now. I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, it will not yield the results that you want. It just won't. And then you'll find yourself being the disgruntled person that is on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or Reddit, and you're just talking all this crap about this person because you went in there expecting your life to completely change in a 5 to 7 week course. And in reality, it's supposed to be an augmentation of what you're already doing. You have to put in the work. It's just that simple. So make that decision on logic and not desperation. And tip number 1, leave at the first sign of shady practices. And here's the reason I say that. There is, I think, a good intention in most of these. 80% of these, there's a good intention there. Everybody does not follow the same practices. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to get tempted, nor do you want to you don't want to have any muscle memory of doing any practices that are shady. Again, I've been in merch since May of 2017. And that's merch by Amazon. I've been in print on demand since 2015. I've seen a lot of people come and go. And a lot of people who came in made a lot more money than me. And I am man enough to say that. Made a lot more money than me. But as fast as it's come, it's gone. And I would take the slow money and the safe account over the last 5 years. I would take that over coming in for 6 months, making a ton of money, and then not being able to ever really get into that again, if that makes any sense. And trust me, it doesn't matter. Everybody, one thing I see in the groups all the time, and the groups are nowhere near as active as they used to be. But, it's just these gurus, these snake oil sellers, and they're coming in and, they're going to make all the money and they get all of the things first. No, that's not true. You have just as much a chance of losing a 100,000 tier account as you do a 10 tier account. And that's just on the merch side. Because again, I started, and I told you guys before, other than my crappy start on Zazzle and Cafe Press, I really started on Teespring and Redbubble. And I've seen sellers on both platforms lose their account before merch was a thought. So these companies, and one would need to only Google Teespring lawsuit or Teespring. It just is some. Trust me, Teespring's had enough cease and desist and enough bad press to just be like, listen, it's not worth it. We'll stop doing business with you first. And so that being said, everybody has the opportunity to lose their account. Don't be that person. And you don't want any of those shady practices to even seep into your mind, because trust me, and I'm being completely honest, and I again, I've made my mistakes. Good Lord, especially before you could curse on your merch shirts. But I've made a ton of mistakes when it comes to merch. I've tried to lead a very straight-laced path to print on demand. Not to say that I haven't had my mistakes, but I gotta tell you, I've been tempted. I'm being honest with you. I don't know any other way to say it. I've been tempted. And anybody who tells you that they have not been tempted to skirt the line and live in that gray area, they're lying. They may not have done it, but the thought has been there. It's just it would be so easy to do it, or it would be so easy to justify it in my mind. Everybody has been there. What makes the mark is being the person that says, you know what, I'm not going to be that person. I'm in this for the long haul. I think at this point, print on demand as a business model has proved that not only is it not going anywhere, it's expanding exponentially. And particularly with merch, which I will still say is the king of print on demand right now, purely based off the traffic. It's been around for 5 years. And I see another 5 years in it. And there are going to be more that come and go. There are going to be the people that were here from the very beginning that lead very quiet lives because they have a well-established catalog, and they make a good bit of money every net 30. And you have the new ones that are going to come in and they're going to knock it out the park. You have the people that are going to make, hey, they may not make but $10,000 a year, if that. But you know what? You can grow off of that. And you can grow off of that with a well-aged account. So as tempting as it may be, leave at the first sign of shady practices. So that's going to wrap it up for today. Like I said, next week I will be back with a series about Teespring. That's going to be our next, which is, it's kind of funny that this leads into it. Again, that's where I started. But again, I just want to remind everybody a little bit of house cleaning here. If you are listening to the podcast version of this, don't forget that you can go to YouTube, search Nick Eden, and see additional content. Some of my classic stuff like Merch in a Minute, Morning Cup of Merch, 45 Live, and the video version of the 4554 podcast. If you are watching this on YouTube, go to your podcast platform of choice, like and subscribe. Tell a friend and tell a friend and tell a friend. YouTube, Nick Eden. Instagram at 4554 podcast. Facebook, the 4554 podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember this: you can make as much money as you want to with print on demand, but you have to press the go button. Take care. I'll talk to you next time.